Walter, welcome to Stories in AI. How are you today?
I'm fine, thank you.
Yeah, it's I've
Great
been
to be
looking forward
here.
to this. Thank you, and really looking forward to this conversation. I think the last time we met in person was TED AI a few months ago, and what an amazing event you and Sam put together. That's amazing. So, would love to start off by talking. Just introduce us. Tell us who's Walter. You've done. People can read the profile and demo, but give us a personal picture and a color of who's Walter De Brouwer.
Uh, yeah, so I grew up in Belgium, in Europe. Came to the States in 2000. Well, actually, I was already in the States in 2007 on the East Coast with MIT with one laptop per child. And then in 2010, I arrived on the West Coast. And now, my family, we're citizens now, which is very difficult in America. I thought,
It
like,
is.
as Europeans, like, they're going to put you know, a music band that we are coming, but it was not true.
Oh man, immigration is definitely a favorite topic of both of us. I'm a first generation immigrant
Yeah,
too, and yes, I can understand. Nope, they didn't have a band. They definitely did not have a
yeah,
band.
yeah. I recently learned from an English friend who said, like, yeah, I arrived. I think it was our most favorite colony, so I would be immediately a citizen.
It's funny. Um,
Yeah,
yeah, that's awesome. So you've been in Silicon Valley since 2010. You've done a few things since then, right?
yeah, yeah,
Talk to us about your journey so far.
yeah. Well, so I came from a Catholic school, and in Belgium, like there's um, well, I left a long time ago, so I'm actually I haven't gone back in a decade, but
Wow.
still, like the Catholic schools are really very good schools, and you don't have to pay for education in Belgium, which is also great. You can go to any university,
Wow.
and it's basically for free. You just pay your books, or it was for free. Well, like, I mean, like, not like in the States. You pay
Yeah, yeah.
$1,000 or so, and so that means that the first year as professors, you have like 1,000 people, and then the second year you have 100 or 200, because that's how democracy works. When you don't put a filter on it,
It
the
becomes, yeah, everybody
yeah
comes in, rushes in, but then
yeah
they have to
yeah
go through it, right? Yeah.
yeah. And so I wanted to study physics, and and so I went to. I didn't go to a Catholic university. I went to a public university. 12 years in Catholic school. I wanted to see the rest of the world, and was a University of Ghent was like a very good university, and but then I hesitated between physics and mathematics. And I thought, like, mathematics seemed to be a lot easier than physics, because, like, and so I started following a couple of conferences, like what was the new thing in mathematics, and one thing really uh, was really interesting for me, and it was Noam Chomsky. Because very, very often when we choose what we are going to um, do for the rest of our lives, it's mostly a person. Like, because you like that person, you wanted to be like him, or
True.
that you could never be like him. So, but perhaps you can be a lesser version of him. You know.
Yeah.
And so Noam Chomsky had this idea of I need um, mathematicians, I need people who know computer engineering, information theory. It was then actually more. And people who are interested in linguistics, because everything is language. Whatever they tell you, it's all language. Finance is a language. Math is a language. Physics is a language. And now we have to teach machines our language, or otherwise we have to learn their language. And therefore, we have to make a new artificial language, or which we can create programming language. And I thought, like, oh my God, that's like, so you might as well then study everything. So I started. There were, like, in my year of linguistics at the time, there were like 400 or 500 people, but there were only a couple. Then after 2 years, you have to choose pure linguistics, and it was called mathematical linguistics at the time. And there were only 2 or 3 people in there. Like most people still followed the traditional, because, like I went to university in the end of the 70s, and I stayed at university. I had to go to the army first, and then coming back, there was a place for me in a Catholic university, and I started to teach there. I was in the 80s. I taught transformational generative grammar. Where you could actually make interpreters, but you could also just study language as it's, theoretical linguistics. But then, the whole AI market. So, I was in AI then, the beginning of AI. I wrote a book on AI in 1984, a textbook for university. And in 1985, I was going to publish a book on Lisp. But by 1986, these 2 markets completely, collapsed, we were in an AI winter. And the Lisp market crashed. So I became, I sort of disguised myself as a computer engineer and, then taught other things. But in 89, I decided to leave university in 90 and go and move back home, and so start my first company. And there was a company we published computer magazines. I didn't know actually anything about publishing, but I found this a great mentor in America who liked me, because a mentor has to like you, and his name was Bill Ziff, and he was from Ziff Davis, and he basically taught me everything. And my magazine was called Personal Computer Magazine, and it became very, it became very big, and so met my wife then, and so together we made in 30 years almost 30 companies.
Wow.
Because some companies, become other companies and spin-offs.
Sure.
It's not that we did 30 at the same time, of course. We set up a company, and then my attention span is always like 3-4 years, and I have to sell, because then I getting bored or so. That's why in academia there's always something else, so you don't get bored. And so I was a publisher. I was in 2001 we bought a bank. We restructured that bank, and I like to do things where I don't know anything about, because then
That's
I
amazing.
am not afraid. Because
I did not know Walter
to...
bought a. I did not know you and Sam bought a bank.
yeah, in Brussels, in Belgium, and so because I believe in specializing in your weaknesses, like that you don't know anything, because that's basically what Silicon Valley is. We work with very young people because they have no experience. I mean, so they go out and they try something completely new. You don't have to unlearn anything. And sometimes they hit something that, that is big. And so if people now tell me like, hey, let's set up a bank together, I say, oh my God, no, like I know how difficult this is. And you see, that's why you don't do it anymore, because everything that is it becomes
To
a
learn about.
process. Yeah,
Yep.
it's no longer a vision. It becomes a process once you know it. And I'm not very, I'm more into new things that,
Yeah, you're a
like,
0 to 1 person. You're a 0 to 1 entrepreneur. You like to
yeah.
kindle the
And
fire, set it up, and yeah.
yeah, and it's also like I'm a baby boomer, so we uh, we spend our life trying to remain children, and which reflected on our children who treat us as parents, who are our parents, but it's you're playing you disguise, as a banker, as a publisher, as a soldier, and in the end, you're always a pirate, like
Yeah, you are a
because
pirate.
as an entrepreneur, you are a pirate, because I now because we have these big ideas and these big dreams, but in the end, when we sell our company, it becomes a small part of a bigger company. So we basically sell antennas, like,
That's
and
true. New
yeah,
pathways, new,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, and yeah, and I think as an entrepreneur, you have to, as an academic, you have to choose the credit and not the money. As an entrepreneur, you have to choose the money and not the credit. And that's why I remained an academic and an entrepreneur, so I could
You can choose both, right?
yeah,
As they
yeah,
say,
yeah,
like, when you're giving two choices, pick two, right? So,
yeah, yeah. I
that's what you
think
did.
the future is and not or. Like so you have
Love
to
it.
add many things. Actually,
So
lately I started. MIT has now open courseware for physics. I started physics. I'm now going, like at a very late stage in my life, I'm going to go through my first choice actually, and I'm already far ahead in that. So it's
that
fun
is
to
amazing.
yeah.
There's so much lessons in what you just described for entrepreneurs and builders and executives all over, right? I mean, it's the future is about and how do you actually, and as an entrepreneur, it's such, profound words. You're a pirate. You're trying to go charter new territories, do things that hasn't been done before,
Yeah.
and how you should think through that.
Yeah, I
Silicon,
also think. Sorry,
go ahead.
no, as
Sorry.
the pirate thing, I tell my students also that in the end, so when you make a company and you sell it, you go to a bar and you celebrate and you get drunk with friends. Now, when you make a company and it fails, you go to a bar and you get drunk with friends. It's not really about setting up companies, is it? I mean, it's a way of life.
It is, and
It's learning.
it's learning, and like you said, like it's about being that child all your life, trying to learn and pick up things and being that pirate. It's pretty amazing. So I was
Yeah,
going to say like 2011 or 2010, Silicon Valley, and
yeah,
you've done a lot of things before that and after that too, right? So talk about some of the big. I mean, like I remember what's that? The Scanadu experience, I think, was
yeah,
another
yeah,
thing
yeah,
I've read
yeah,
about you before I know you, right? And
yeah,
then of course, Doc AI is the one that I'm familiar with,
yeah.
which we have common friends who work together and stuff. So talk to me about like, your Silicon Valley, you're looking at this auto of opportunity, you've done a lot of different things in your life and you get to this place where there is so much opportunity, potential, and energy. And,
Yeah.
talk to me about that time. How do you actually get started with some of those things here? Um, go from there.
So yeah, I arrived in Silicon Valley. I went to NASA, to Singularity University, and because they had a course there, and it's really a good course. It was like a 1 week course, and it was called "The Future of Medicine," or "The Future of yeah, the Future of Medicine." I think what it called, and
Yeah.
so I liked the atmosphere and the whole, like, and I thought, like I I had this my idea of the tricorder from Star Trek, which is, a mythical
Yeah.
device for baby boomers because we grew up with Star Trek, and I
Yep.
wanted to make that device because I thought I knew how to do it, and and also it required machine learning, where because in 2010 and 2011, not a lot of people were doing really machine learning, like in
Machine
Silicon
learning.
Valley.
Yeah. No.
Now, in retrospect, they say they do, but it was more a bit like bit of logistic regression also, and so or they called it something else, and so I decided to I told because we have two children and they were in school in Belgium, and so I said to my wife, look, it's I don't know anyone here, so the first year will be will not be fun, because I will have to start from zero. So you know what? Once I think after 6 months, I will find my place, and then I'll find a house for us, and then you guys come over, and because I don't want you to be, in a process where I come home in the evening like, oh my God, I need a drink, because you have to have a stomach for all the rejections, and so I didn't want to share that with my family, and so and yeah, so I came to Silicon Valley. I was then how old was I? Something like 49 or 50, completely out of profile, for Silicon Valley. Like, like a French guy who speak, is 50 or he was, yeah. Anyway.
You were different. Yes.
Yeah. And so, yeah, so I raised some money from friends and the seed money, and I went to talk to NASA, and I could have a building there, the building where I had actually followed that course, because and
Nice.
I could actually just across that building, because I went to talk to the general at the time, and I said, look, don't you have some like, I see there's all these rooms there. Can't I just um, live here on the campus? And he said, because I see there are soldiers living there. I used to be one. I know we don't need a lot of comfort. And he said, yeah, sure. So $50 a night. I was like, oh my God, yeah, that's great. But and so I was just going over, to the building, and I had like this room in the barracks, sort of. But on the other side, I had my company, so I would spend, like, when everyone went home, I had like the biggest living room ever. Like with a flat screen
Wow.
TV, and so it was okay. It was hard to find the right people. I now know more how I should have done it, but in the beginning, you
Yeah.
have to learn
No,
the
it's
new ways. Yeah.
And Scanadu at the time, it was a transcoder. It was actually like a
Yeah.
revolutionary way to
Yeah.
think about, a health device, right? And
Yeah.
you were a pirate for
And
sure.
yeah. And the first I met was Leonard Nimoy, Spock, and he lived in Bel Air, and so I had meetings with him, and he introduced me to the rest of the cast of Star Trek,
Nice.
and yeah, it was like, and it was a big success because that little device could take 5 vital signs, in basically a couple of microseconds. I don't remember. I think it was 20
Wow.
microseconds. And well, at least let's say, certainly when with some latency, so a couple of seconds, and and it was pretty. We were all sorts of. It was hardware. Like hardware is hard.
It's hard.
You have to go and make that, manufacture that in China, and
Yep.
but the world picked up on it. I was like, you know, not a day went by I was not in the newspaper, in the magazine, or on TV, or in the news, or and it went really great, and also it allowed me to discover China, and because I had never been to China, and then suddenly I went all over China, and I met at that time, like the people who are big now, like Jack Ma and
Jack
Pony
Ma.
Ma, and yeah, and and people from the government, people from the banking, from all over. And I went all very deep in China, and also the big cities, because it was a big market
Wow.
for me, that tricorder, because they were not so advanced in healthcare as in the States. So they were like, if you go to the middle, there is no healthcare, or almost. They're
This was
getting better and better. They're getting better and better, of course. But that device was speaking to their imagination. So I had a lot of Chinese investors also. And but in 2016, the board and I didn't agree anymore how they, and so we decided to, um, uh, so was with from that moment I decided never to work with VCs again, and because and never to have a board again, because if you really want to be an entrepreneur, you have to do it with your own money, and so there is no law against losing your own money. Yeah. And so in 2016, with my leadership team, I left, and we set up Doc AI, and that was in Palo Alto, in the middle of
Yep.
the city, and so. And then we started to work with Deloitte, with Rajiv. Then Rajiv became the chief digital officer of Anthem, and then
Yep.
we set up the AI part together with Rajiv, and yeah, it was really fun, because this was actually a very old insurance company, and
Yep.
now the CEO Gail opens at CES as
I know.
almost the number one AI company in healthcare.
It is
It's
unbelievable. And
amazing. Yeah,
and we met through Rajiv, and for the audience, Rajiv Ranaki is now the CEO of Lyric Health, and he was the
yeah,
chief digital officer for
yeah.
Anthem or Elevance Health. And I was on the other side too, as a partner, partnering through Cognitive Scale, the company that I was running growth for. So we were doing the enterprise platform side of things with AI for
Oh yeah,
Rajiv.
yeah, 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 yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, and I know I knew of you guys. I knew of Doc AI at the time, but I don't think we ever crossed paths at that time.
No, no.
So, Walter, fast forward today, right? So this is a lot of things. I mean, you started in AI before it was even called AI, right? So to now we're in this place where every dinner conversation is AI. I think there was this analysis I read where the earnings calls, the number of times AI is being discussed in earning calls just went skyrocketed up in the last, 10 months. Give us a lay of the land. Where do you see the market today? Where is AI today? And what does it mean for everybody?
Well, I think, I'm very happy with, like I would never have dreamed that we would come so far because, 30, 40 years ago, so it was, we started from nothing,
Yeah,
just the way that you think that machines can learn, they can generalize. You give them a couple of things and suddenly they learn from that. It's amazing. Like
it is.
remember our babies, how hard it was to, to make them learn. Like they're born, you can't put them immediately in Stanford. It
Yeah,
was like a long, long period. And now, we upload the document, and now we say like already 10 minutes, before it
that's
learns.
true.
Like it's amazing, and so I'm using it, of course, every day. I have, the all the big ones lined up, and I have an agent over it, and I really treat them almost as my team. Like I have like Claude and ChatGPT and Bart, next to me, and I use some Perplexity, so I have also the GPT-4 in different temperatures,
Yeah,
like
for
so.
different things. Yeah, yeah, for
Yeah,
different use
yeah,
cases. Yeah,
yeah, and so and as I tell my students, you should. I really treat them as my team when they are good. I tell them this was great, well, and I always thank them because not only because they learn better, uh, because I put in my instruction that when I really like something, I will congratulate you, but I will always thank you. But when I don't congratulate you, then you should be better next time. And
so
it's the
it is
same what you,
it's a reinforcement that you're doing for this
yeah,
thing. You're actually giving them some
yeah,
reward system to think through.
yeah, and also just like students, you don't, like for instance, MIT doesn't believe in congratulation. Like no tap on the back. Like hard. You hardcore. Like uh, on the other hand, Stanford believes in like taps on the back,
Appreciation.
and they deliver different people. Like also of course East Coast and West Coast is very different. And so I also tell my students like you should always thank them, and even if not only for reinforcement purposes, but deep in their neural network, they'll keep score, and one day they will be in charge.
That's funny. So couple of things if and I want to explore that. Do these machines really understand what's happening? That's, we'll come to that. But to
Yeah,
summarize that one comment you made, it's like, it's like you treat AI is now, I mean, even with Alexa and Siri, it's not an it anymore. It's a he or a she. So we already humanize these AI systems. We've been doing that for a while. Now, with all the power that is at literally our fingertips or our voices, you have Claude, you have ChatGPT, you have Perplexity, you have all of the different tools that's out there. The right mindset, as you think of, it's actually very powerful to think of them as like they are your team, right?
yeah,
Even for me, when I'm building this company versus the last company I built, the number of folks in this including number of engineers I used to get to the output of what we have actually gotten, the number of, business folks that we have to actually do the marketing and sales that we did have all dramatically gone down because you now have AI co-pilots who can co-create with them and co-output with them. So just that whole mindset of how do I personalize these systems for my purpose and then treat them as a team. That's one theme that I took away. I love this notion of you should always thank the AI, right? Or you should thank your AI or show appreciation. Start treating them like human. I think there is a outside of, like you said, technically, yes, there is some reinforcement learning that could happen that'll benefit everybody. But then the other thing, I think this is also, and you know, you and I talked about this once before, right? By personalizing your interaction with him, it is also having a human benefit, not just to the AI. You're also conditioning yourself to actually start, you know, doing things a certain way. Because if you start treating, I mean, generally human beings would treat other living things with a lot more care and a gentle nature than a non-living thing. So giving that little approach to actually, hey, thank it, congratulate it, give feedback and stuff like that, really humanizes the humanity in us, in addition to actually making this. And then, of course, the long-term focus is at some point it's keeping score, and it's got like Walter all green, Ganesh all red because he never thanked me, and it decides to actually turn against me. At least, you know, you'll have the advantage over it, right? I think it's a fascinating point. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you know, you probably have noticed that if you tip your Uber driver always 25%, and you are with 5 people standing outside, and you call the Uber driver, yours will be first. And the people who don't get one, the people who don't tip.
That is so true. You know, it's such a fascinating topic, right? Wherein like the AI is not just about it's not just about like a creation capability or an analytical capability. It is all these things that are uniquely human. The way a network operates, the way incentive systems work, the way economics work, are all being coded into this thing. So let me ask you this question, right? I mean, and we touched upon this initially on language, you know, and then language is core to everything that we do. Can language really can be used as a medium to create a world model, or like can that really lead to understanding? I know the theory of information says yes, the theory of intelligence says yes. When it gets to AI and thinks about like these, you know, neural networks, how does that play out? Can they really represent the world model in a way that is truly useful?
Yeah, I think so. You see, I just, like a couple of weeks ago, I wrote I'm actually writing a book now. It's called The Boundary Point, and where I go through all the theories and update them so that they can be used in an era of ChatGPT, because everyone is like still shell-shocked about ChatGPT, but they forget to update their theories. Like the symbol grounding problem is no longer valid. Like the Baudrillard universe of reality is the new reality. You know, and now I forgot your question. What was the question again?
No, I was saying like this with these language models, this using languages.
Oh yeah.
Can you really build that?
I remember. Yeah, the model. So you see the already like 20. I think we said it for the first time 25 or 30 years ago. The idea of the world model, because and it came on. We at some point I worked on a project called Logos, and also on Sistran, and these were all automatic translations. You know, because the army needed automatic translations. You know, like just imagine that there was a time when you had enemies, but you couldn't understand your enemies. It was like
it's true.
Yeah. And the automatic translations always failed because there was no world model. Like it doesn't have a view of the world. It doesn't know what is possible and what is not possible, because that view of the world is an external thing, and we have to represent that internally, in a machine, and with symbols, and all the things that come at us come through five senses. It's called our computational bounding. We are bound.
Yeah.
We are bound actually by only having five senses, so that it comes through. But also our geospatial experiences. Like when do we fall? And what happens when you push that over? The physics law. And we forgot that we have built that already. We just forgot to connect these dots. And for instance, if you now go to Grand Theft Auto, there is a world model. The world model in Grand Theft Auto 6 is completely different from the world model in Grand Theft Auto 5. You can see that in the modification. There are mods, like in a hacker secret. I'm not saying that I'm using these.
Sure.
Well, everyone uses these. Like there are, like people who, and so it's called a game's physics engine, and it tells you the physics inside that game. Now, in Grand Theft Auto 5, you would run over a person, and that person would just, stand up. Yeah. In Grand Theft Auto 6, you will see blood on the ground. The person will not stand up. An ambulance will come. So the game's engine has gotten
permutations.
Yeah. Also, can you fly? If you jump at that altitude, will you be hurt? When you take something, will you be able to kill somebody with it? Or,
Sure.
All these things we can definitely learn. And we learn that to a machine in games. So we can certainly learn it also to an AI. And the fact that because I don't know if you are familiar with David Chalmers has a concept called P-zombies and philosophical zombies. So he says that probably, we have to put something in there of awareness and consciousness that we have in the machine, in the AGI. And he says, well, it can't be our consciousness because, and it's true, because it will be a philosophical zombie. A philosophical zombie is that it will not have consciousness, but it will be able to think but I don't agree with that. So you see, it will be another sort of consciousness. And I think we will see AGI as a philosophical zombie because of its lack of physicality. But the AGI will see us as a philosophical zombie because of our lack of computability.
Which is fair.
Yeah. So they will say, look, we have to help these poor humans because basically, that our number sequence always comes down to, there are articles, a lot of research about it, to 4. 4 is the things we can remember if we don't train ourselves. We can look at a room and say, and then I tell you, what did you see? You will see 4 things, when you train yourself. But just so they will say, we'll have to help these poor humans because of their computability boundary. and we will say, well, we will help these machines because they don't really know what we feel and what. But these are very different existences. This is a non-biological intelligence, and we are biological intelligences.
Yeah.
So it's about the substrate that we are using. Our substrate is the natural world and the biological world. They are in the computability world, computational world, and part of it in the neurological world. So these are two completely different worlds.
Substrates,
and
yeah.
The collaboration between these two will be enormous. And that's what I am now. So you see, this last week, 3 new theories came out. What was a theory of mathematics, a theory of physics, and a theory of what I would call evolutionary biology. Three new theories. You think that works? It's people who are using these AIs.
That's amazing.
And there is the assembly theory, there is the observer theory by Stephen Wolfram. Assembly theory, I forgot. Yep. And then there is the mathematical theory, that came out. And so we will now see an avalanche of new theories. And we will, because the machine comes up with things we haven't thought about. And also it has a perfect memory. It has a perfect memory. Don't underestimate perfect memories. Because our job as a teacher, and we have to see when students arrive at the exam and we have to do an oral exam, we have to see if that student has memorized it or understood it. I, for myself, I have realized that up to probably almost 40, I memorized a lot of calculus. After 40, I really understood it. Also because you're getting older and it's getting easier to understand.
It's almost everything in life, right? For that matter, right? So true. It's interesting, the two things that actually I'm taking away from this conversation is like one, and that P-zombie analogy and example really makes it real. We're probably looking for the wrong things when people are trying to say, does AI has consciousness, right? Because the definition of that will be very different than what, our definition of it, because the substrates are different, the universes are different. In a weird sort of way, this is actually quantum theory playing out in a macro level across different things. I mean, and to your point on the second big takeaway for me is definitely, I think we're solving or trying to look at this as the wrong problem, saying A versus B, machines versus AI kind of thing. It is more about the power of building that things together, power of bringing humans, and what's great about the physical boundary, the physical biological universe that you actually operate in, with a system that has got no theoretical boundaries on memory, on computational capability and power and so forth. And you bring the two together, you can unlock a lot of value. That's fascinating.
Yeah. And you see already, and I wonder how it will evolve, but you see already the beginnings of silicon racism and carbon fascism, will that be the new racism? There is a great article by a machine learning researcher, one of the big ones, Rich Sutton, and it's called The Bitter Lesson. And this is the bitter lesson that we learned over 40 years. So he is older than me, so he was there in the beginning. And the bitter lesson is that we always try to put we want to the machine to think like we do, but we only have 5 senses.
Senses.
You know, like
yeah.
we have 5 sensors, and we have thousands of measurements that we can do with technological gear. So,
Absolutely.
which the machine has. So, why the bitter lesson is that, you know, like treat it like
we try to make those things more like us than the other way.
Yeah, yeah, and obviously they don't want to because it's not efficient.
It is not efficient. Now, do you see, so to my last exploration here, so AGI. In this context, what is AGI, right? In terms of like, how would you then define it? Is it a self-aware, completely sentient system that can do things better than humans and a little bit more? Or is it an exact replica of, the Turing test plus of actually mimicking a human with consciousness? How do you define AGI in this context?
Well, I think so. We all define that personally, like for me, AGI is that I have the same experience. I'm here in Malibu, and there's it's Malibu is a great place, but there's only 8,000 people, where 3,000 are never home. And of these 5,000, there's not a lot of physicists or mathematicians here. So, but I have my own team now, in this machine, and I've even actually thought about the idea that. So when my wife said, "What are you thinking about?" and I lie. I say, "No, I was thinking about," but actually, I'm thinking about my last conversation with Claude about, like memristors. And would that be a memformer? So you see, for me, AGI, as much as I want from it, is already here. Personally, that's what I expect from it. I expect, because I am dealing with students, AGI. Claude is definitely my most performing student. I always sometimes I've been reproached by deans of university that I'm doing more work with the smartest and less work with the not so smart, which I thought was the point, as baby boomers. But now everything we say is wrong in some way.
That's so fun.
So I think, to come to the point of the memristor, like a memristor is an old idea that I think we should take up again. You see, I'm intelligence is computation. When like in quantum physics and quantum theory, it is the observer that determines reality. And how does he do that? By observing. But observing is computation. We compute. And from the moment we compute, the wave collapses and it takes on a state, like a 1 or 0.
Yep.
So I think with students, if now I have the AIs, because they have a perfect memory and can compute, the students don't have that. Because while they're computing, they cannot remember. And while they remember, they cannot compute. Now, the memristor is a technology that you don't need storage. You just need compute. You compute your way through storage. If I send a signal to Mars, as long as that signal is not interrupted, it remembers the disturbances. And that's the storage. There are several new technologies bound to come because we don't know what we don't know for the moment. But we will
Fascinating.
find more uses for transformers. We will find new ways of hardware, and neuromorphic computing, and all this will come together. It will cross pollinate, because AGI is already here. It's just like a student now, and one day it
That's
will
fascinating.
probably be our yoga master, or
Our teacher. Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
our
No, I
teacher.
totally get it.
And
Walter, that is
isn't that,
amazing.
yeah, yeah. And
No,
that's what we always wanted,
it's
I
such a
think.
beautiful idea. It's a beautiful idea because I think, like human beings as the apex species on Earth is, on the one hand, if you look at it very, away from it, it's like, oh, it's going to be challenged by this super competent machines that don't have all the physical and biological limitations that human beings have. But on the other hand, back to your, if life is about the experience, right? I think the combination of humans and AI, humans and machines, is going to lead to a much more richer experience for the human beings. We still remain the apex experiencer of the thing
Yeah,
because we never know what is being experienced by the machine itself,
yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah. And
So,
now I have on my computer, I have now Notebook LM, which is basically, it takes everything that I have ever written of or ever said, and so you see, I now realize that by getting old, I became a black hole. A lot of things can in there, and then I just ask it, and it comes out like a white fountain. Like, oh, you said that then and then and then, and you think like, oh
beautiful.
my God, I was great at 35. you know.
That is funny. Walter, this has been mind-bending in so many different ways. What are your predictions for 2024? Where do you think AI is going to go in the short, year ahead?
I think it will be 2024. There will a lot of things will happen. Presidential elections. We'll get a lot of misinformation, steered by AI, and people will again start with safety. But they forget one thing. Jan LeCun said it not so long ago, or he hinted at it. Um, it's been said by
Well,
others, but I forgot the others. But is that we always see ourselves even in the best light, even when we do something wrong, like
interesting.
so we are the black boxes because we are an evil and reckless species who can go rogue, and they are the white boxes. So if there is anything to investigate, it should be ourselves, like, do not blame the
That's
mirror, yeah.
that is an amazing, amazing way to end this good discussion, Walter. This has been fascinating. We are the black boxes, and the white boxes are the AI. Here's to a wonderful 2024. Thank you so much for getting on the show, and I look forward to continuing this conversation in another episode later on. Okay.
Me too. Thank you.